Dr. Rajiv Kumar joins us. He's not just the Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, he has been a board member at the RBI as well, and up until very recently, till I think August 2017. Thank you very much, Dr. Kumar, for being with us. And I think there are a lot of people who are breathing a sigh of relief that the bitter battle of words, the standoff has ended. Both parties backed off from what was really looking like a brink. Are you going to say there is this uneasy truce, or have they really smoked the peace pipe? Too early to say.
But the great news is, Supriya, that much better sense has prevailed, and I think both sides have recognized the simple fact that all sides are a member of the macroeconomic management team of the country, and being a team, they have to work together. They have to find ways of coming to positions which are commonly accepted. And I think this will be, and to that extent, the board meeting yesterday is a real historical milestone, which is because it has clearly conveyed the message that this so-called rift and antagonism between Mint Road and North Block is a thing of the past, and that all sides will work together for the best interests of the country.
Fair point indeed, and I at least like the fact that you're being candid enough to say that this isn't peace suddenly. There is still work to be done. There are issues that still remain to be ironed out, and I'm at least glad that you're being candid. But if I may ask a follow-up question on that, for 75 long years, the RBI has enjoyed this stature. It has had immense stature. In some sense, has that been roughed up?
Not at all, not the least, not the very least. I think the RBI is an institution, and the RBI governor and its management still enjoy the same status and reputation as they've always done. But as you might have read in the past, when all this controversy was raging, several former RBI governors and our finance ministers have made the point that it has always been the RBI and the finance ministry working together, and that to some extent, not to some extent, that the finance minister being accountable to the parliament and to the people of this country and being a member of the cabinet is the economic, is the person who is accountable for economic outcomes and outcome performance. And to that extent, everybody else, whoever and wherever that is, with all their stature and their positions, etc., quite intact, have to be a member of a team led by the finance minister. And I think that's become, in my view, thankfully become clear at this marathon meeting. And henceforth, I'm sure the team members will recognize each other's importance, each other's critical importance, and will decide to find common grounds and not to air their views in public, because team members keep the discussions within the team to the team itself.
Dr. Kumar, the meeting began under the overhang that RBI was going to be made into a more board-governed institution. Now, explicitly that hasn't happened, but if you see the official press release from the RBI, there are 5 references to how the board took a call on issues where the board was technically not supposed to or was not required to take a call at all. Will you be candid to say that there is an implicit admission of the role and influence of the board that one hadn't seen before at the RBI?
Supriya, in all cases that I know of, the board is the supreme body of any organization, and the management of the board, the management of the organization defers to the board. But the fact also is that the governor of RBI is the chairman of that board, and let's not forget that. And therefore, whatever the board decides has the explicit, I think, concurrence and agreement, in fact, the permission, if you like, of the chairman of the board to have taken the decision. So somehow, this dichotomy that is being sought to be made between the board managed and the and the management run RBI, I think is fraught with all sorts of problems, and I don't think it's the correct one. As long as the chairman of that board is the governor of the RBI, and there are full-time members of that board, and then others which are representing different segments of our population and different different interests, I think the board is the authority, is the body which should take all the important decisions being taken by the RBI. And I think this is what is reflected in the press release, and this is why I also called it a historical milestone, because henceforth, and by the way, it goes to the credit of the government that it has made sure that the board members of the RBI are professionally hugely competent people who have their own strong technical expertise and undoubtedly the ability to articulate them. So therefore, I think a board working in that manner under, I repeat, the chairmanship of the governor RBI is, I think, the best thing that can happen to the RBI going forward.
But will you at least agree with me that so far as the RBI board is concerned, it is not full of technical experts like the deputy governors or the governor himself, and which is why the role of the board at the RBI has to be more advisory, has to be more, the supervision can't be technical like in a commercial bank's board. And that is where the distinction will have to be made to avoid any other flashpoints in the future.
Now, Supriya, you did mention the board of the commercial banks, and I happen to be a member of the SBI Central Board for 6 long years. You know, even the commercial bank boards do not have so-called technical people as board members. You know, because a bank, commercial bank, and even much more so the central bank, is very central. Is something which is at the core of macroeconomic management, which affects the entire society, the entire economy, and every aspect of it. Therefore, you do want these boards to have representatives which of different segments, of different interests, of different stakeholders, because it's not a technical decision. You see, this whole business of macro management of the economy being a very technocratic thing is, I think, is wrong. It's the political economy of management which matters, right? And to that extent, you've had things in the, otherwise the next step people will take is to say the finance ministers of this country should only be technical or technocratic people. No, right. Not right.
Okay.
So therefore, the board, I think, should be made up of people who represent all right. segments of the society, and they then take a decision jointly.
Okay.
To come into whatever on the issues that are before them.
Dr. Kumar, the biggest bone of contention was the reserve transfer, and on that the board has decided to constitute an expert committee, and there will be a reference, the terms of reference and the members will be decided jointly by the government and the RBI. The question there is, has the crisis been averted? Because many people were worried about that particular issue, because the demand for reserve is really stemming in from fiscal concerns in New Delhi. And many people thought, is that money going to be used to plug the fiscal loopholes?
I think this is being a bit presumptive on our part, that there is a fiscal concern in New Delhi, because we don't know yet what the fiscal balance is going to be like, and also what are the other instruments up the government's sleeve to balance the fiscal situation if the need so arises. But there's a bigger principal point at stake, for which reason I think the committee is such a welcome idea, which is that we have to determine, after the Malegaon committee period was over, the 3 years that he said all the reserves should be transferred, all the surpluses should be transferred to the government. He himself, Mr. Malegaon, had recommended that you establish a new economic capital framework for the RBI. And this, the government had made, and by the way, I was a member of one of the meetings where this was discussed, but as always, this should have been discussed, with the entire board, and the claim that the argument was that it hadn't been. So I'm very glad that it has been done now, and that the principle of what the capital economic capital framework would be
Right.
will now be determined.
Right.
Whether or not the funds are transferred, etc., I think is a second order question.
Fair point. Dr. Kumar, let me just quickly switch gears and talk to you about the PCA norms. And I know the Board for Financial Supervision, which is really the technical division of the RBI, will look into that matter. My question to you really is that as far as PCA norms are concerned, they have been put in place to ring-fence banks from what could be, more NPAs in the making, more dubious lending. If we are going to indeed lower the bar or lower the ground for PCA, for banks in PCA, are we not making lending suspect once again? Are we not perhaps stoking fears of another round of NPA creation?
Yeah, so Supriya, I hope the norms and the bars will never be lowered, and I hope that the BCF will look into the banks as they are. But the fact is that since the PCA has been introduced, several of the 11 banks have performed much better and have been able to recover some of their non-performing assets. They've had a very steep increase in their deposits. Their performance has improved. Their profitability has improved. So I think what was required and what should have been done even earlier was to have done a review 6 months at the end of the 6 months of this regime to see if there are some banks which are ready to come out of it. And I think that is what will happen. So there cannot be a situation where we allow any dubious lending, etc., to go on, but recognition of the fact that there has been differentiated performance within the PCA banks, and therefore there might be some who could start lending because they've received so much deposits which are stuck there that the liquidity being generated by the RBI is not reaching where it should reach because it is stuck in the PCA banks.